Who rules the empire? Is it the emperor, his nobles, or the wealthy merchants? What if I told you it was none of the above? What if I told you that the empire is currently being ruled by a secret cult of vampiric, seductive, highly intelligent, and devious women known as the Lahmians? I know it sounds crazy, but there's a conspiracy afoot. The leaders of the empire we know are nothing more than puppets. Wait, did you just say that we are ruled by women? Oh, just let the chaos win. Now look, this isn't some Alex Jones, Bohemian Grove, Bilderberger, World Economic Forum, they're putting stuff in the water that makes the fogs gay BS. No, this is the real deal. An actual secretive Illuminati-like cult of evil women that want to rule the world. Now when I say the vampires, I'm not talking about the vampire counts from Sylvania, such as Vlad von Karstein or Manfred, or even the vampire pirates. No, you see, while the vampire counts have been trying to take over the empire by force, another vampiric bloodline known as the Lahmians have already taken over the empire from within. They operate in the shadows, pulling the strings, controlling both the political and economic forces of the empire. They've embedded themselves in the noble families and have shaped society to their liking. They might even be choosing who the emperors are. But why do they rule from the shadows? Where did they come from and what is their ultimate plan? We'll stick around and find out. Also guys, if you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and comment below on what you think. Also, another great thing is that recently I got monetized, which means I'll finally be able to run some ads and maybe make a little bit of money off of these. We'll see. Also, if you want to support me, you can become a member of the channel. It will give you special perks such as being able to watch videos early and vote in polls on what the next subject that I'll be covering. Any support is always appreciated. History. Behind every great man is a great woman, and behind these great women is me, Neferata, Queen of the Lahmians. The Lahmians are the oldest vampiric bloodline descended from the very first vampire named Neferata. She was the ancient queen of a Nahikran city-state named Lamia. She's also known as the Queen of the Silver Pinnacle, Night Queen, Vampire Queen, Queen Shadow, Lady of the Silver Mountain, Queen of the Dawn, Eternal Queen, Daughter of the Moon, Queen of Moonlight and Shadow, Silver Queen, Queen of Mysteries, the First of the Vampires, First of the Damned, the Queen of Evil. My lord, I thought Daenerys had too many titles and names. Now before I explain what exactly the Lahmians are doing or what they want, let's do a quick history lesson about them. The Lahmians originate from Lamia, a dark and decadent city located near the coast of Nahakra. Nahakra is essentially the equivalent of ancient Egypt. They have the pyramids, the desert, the mummies, the pharaohs, the whole shebang. Neferata, the leader of the modern Lahmians, was born as a normal human to the priest king Lamazash and was destined to rule from birth. She wanted to join the mortuary cult, but her father laughed at her because girls couldn't join or learn magic. However, her desire to learn magic would never fade, and soon she would get her chance to learn the dark arts. In her early life, she would cross paths with the teachings of Nagash, an infamous necromancer. Nagash sought immortality, and Neferata soon became his greatest follower as she sought that power as well. But the problem was that necromancy was an evil art, and Nagash was seen as a bad boy troublemaker that most of the kings of Nakara despised and wanted destroyed. Neferata would spend her time learning the dark arts and perfecting her craft. When others within her kingdom, such as the leech priests of the mortuary cult, learned what she was planning, they began to move against her. Neferata would soon learn of the machinations of her priests and slay the most powerful of them scheming against her. The mortuary cult launched an all-out assault against her palace, but they were struck down. The Battle of Lamia had been won, and the remaining of the leech priests would soon be killed and other religious orders banned. Instead, Neferata would institute her new religion known as the Cult of Blood. Afterward, Neferata would continue her journey for immortality and eventually distill an elixir of life. However, she wasn't as skilled in necromancy as Nagash, and her elixir would make her immortal, but at the cost of her becoming a vampire, the first vampire in existence. She shared her elixir with her inner circle, 11 in total who would become the Trueborn. But there was a problem. Vampires needed to drink blood, and they also didn't eat. This wasn't something that could be hidden easily, and most of the other kings in the land weren't the most accepting of this lifestyle, or necromancy in general. Nagash was a hated man in the land, and any follower of his would not be treated well. They would quickly become suspicious. To make matters worse, Neferata would soon demand worship for herself and her vampires. The Cult of Blood was the official religion, and its practices were a little, well, Jeffrey Epstein's island, he got nothing on them. Imagine Eyes Wide Shut and whatever deity was doing times 10. We're talking serious debauchery. Eventually, visitors from other cities noted the statues and hieroglyphics all promoted Nagash. Rumors spread that the blood of young noblemen was drunk like wine by the queen and her followers, and that they also bathed in blood to maintain their youth. And you thought Madonna's attempts to remain young were bad. Eventually, the other kings of Nakara would declare a holy war against Lamia for its blasphemous practices and besiege the city. The defenders of Lamia would use necromancy to create an army of the undead to defend the city. Nagash himself would intervene with his magical powers to constantly reanimate the dead and use them to defend Lamia. However, the walls of the city were eventually breached and Neferata fled. The besieging soldiers would enter the city and set fire to it. Every building was demolished, such as the Grand Temple of Blood. The remaining population was enslaved, and the great city of Lamia was now a ruin and remained so to this day. Neferata and her followers would eventually meet up with Nagash. Nagash viewed the vampires as powerful warriors that he could use for his own purposes, those purposes being to fight in his war against the other kings of the land. The vampires would lead his legions of the undead, You see, Nagash, like most major bad guys, wanted to rule everything. Though the vampires viewed Nagash with high esteem, Nagash only saw them as tools. Neferata, once the absolute monarch of Lamia, was now nothing more than a servant to Nagash. She was passed over for a military leadership position, treated as nothing more than a vassal, and sent to the proverbial kitchen. Nagash wanted her obedient like a dog. Technically, he wanted all the vampires obedient like dogs, and even moved to create an ability that would allow him to control them. Kind of a downgrade in position for Neferata. Before, she had daily parties with a cult of blood, but now, well, she was nothing. Nagash's treatment of her would build up her resentment towards men in general, for she had been prevented from learning magic as a little girl by a man, and was now prevented from having any political or military power from another man. Not happy with her situation and fearful of being dominated by Nagash, she would flee north with her most loyal followers to establish a new power base that she could use to reclaim Lamia. She would find her way into the World Edge Mountains and discover a perfect location for a new base on a desolate mountaintop known as the Silver Pinnacle. Unfortunately, the pinnacle was controlled by a group of dwarves, but Neferata was resourceful. Using her powers of necromancy, she would raise an army of the dead and take the mountaintop by force. The base would prove to be ideal because it was isolated and well guarded by the mountains. Humans, orcs, dwarves, and most importantly Nagash would have trouble finding her here, and it is here that Neferata, the Queen of Lamia, has remained. Lahmian Sisterhood machinations. Soon after establishing a new palace on the Silver Pinnacle, Neferata would establish the Lahmian Sisterhood, a secretive order of vampiric women. These women would be sent out to the kingdoms of men to infiltrate the highest positions of society. The sisters would use their charm and beauty to marry into wealthy families and enter into important institutions. They became nobles in their own right and served as spies, allowing Neferata to know everything that was happening. The Lahmians assembled wealth, land, and control over the political order. They could make and destroy anyone. Many who knew of their existence strived to serve them in exchange for advancement in their career. Those that opposed were destroyed. They essentially became the Illuminati. But what exactly are the goals of the Lahmian Sisterhood? Well, for one, Neferata herself wants to subjugate all the vampires in the world. As the first vampire, she views all of them as her subjects, and any that don't obey her are traitors that deserve death. She kind of holds a grudge against them for turning their backs on her and not doing enough to defend Lamia. Women, am I right? They never drop grudges. The end goal of dominating all the vampires is to consolidate her power and get revenge. But that's more of a secondary goal. The true prize, the real major goal, is to recapture Lamia and restore a lost kingdom. Unfortunately, Nakara is now ruled by the Tomb Kings, who are essentially the undead Nakikarans. Maybe we can cover the story of Nagash and the Tomb Kings some other time. But essentially Nagash killed all the living in the land and then resurrected them as the undead to serve him. However, he was assassinated, and now the resurrected Tomb Kings rule over the undead legions. Anyhow, she hopes that her control and influence over the mortal realms will allow her to assemble enough resources to retake her homeland from the powerful and immortal Tomb Kings. Afterwards, she will once again become the Queen of Lamia, establish a new cult of blood, and be worshipped as a goddess till the end of time. Today, hundreds of members of the Lahmian Sisterhood have spread out over human kingdoms and exert great political influence and manipulate every corner of human society. Behind every throne and powerful noble stands a pale and beautiful vampiric woman secretly pulling the strings. She may be a wife, mistress, courtesan, or a noble in her own right. Neferata realized, why rule through force when you can do it from the shadow? The best part of ruling through the shadows is that no one knows who to fight against. All anger that people have against the powers that be will be directed towards the emperors and kings. If a puppet of theirs is overthrown, the Lahmian Sisterhood can just appoint another. The Lahmians also work to stir up religious conflict in the empire between the cult of Sigmar and Orlik to weaken both institutions. They push humanistic ideals and aim to eliminate human religion. This will make it easier for humanity to worship Neferata. In addition, holy shrines and symbols can be harmful to vampires, and therefore it would be better for the Sisterhood that they be gone entirely. In addition, the Lahmians have also tried to protect humanity. After all, a dead slave is no good to his master. They have helped humanity fight against Chaos, the Orc, even against other vampire groups such as the Van Karstein bloodline. Now, if you watched my video about the Empire, you would know that the Lahmians aren't the only vampires that want to take over. The Von Karsteins, who have ruled the province of Sylvania, have tried to take over the Empire as well. The difference is that they try to do so through brute force with military invasions. However, their attempts have always resulted in the Empire uniting and fighting them and winning. Neferata knows that humans will never knowingly accept vampiric rule, so she does it from the shadow. Infiltrate, subjugate, and rule from within. They hide in plain sight. The hardest enemy to fight is the one that comes at you from the back, not the front. And since vampires are immortal, their planning spans decades and even centuries. Whenever a strong leader emerges and pushes against Lahmian interests, they can just wait for them to pass and take over again in a decade or a century, an unparalleled and unseen empires when Neferata rules over. You know that they're very similar to the Bene Gesserit from Dune. Both are cults of women that rule through scheming and not direct force, and both have plans that span centuries. Now, as I said before, the vampires hid themselves in imperial society by marrying into imperial families or becoming mistresses or consorts. But how do they hide their vampiric tendencies? Now, vampires can't go into the sun, nor can their reflections appear in mirrors. This is a problem because Lahmians live among humans, and if others were to learn of these facts, they would be discovered. Luckily for the Lahmians, noble women aren't usually required to leave their houses. They're usually expected to stay home and maintain the household. This allows them to avoid direct sunlight most of the time. On the rare occasions they have to leave, it's usually for special events such as gala balls or the theater, but these usually usually occur in the evening when the sun is either partially or fully gone down. In addition, it's usually normal for nobles to stay up late at night because, well, they certainly don't have to get up early in the morning to work like the peasants do. This allows the Lahmians to operate at night if they ever need to travel. When it comes to mirrors, they're usually only found in wealthy homes. The sisterhood has been trained to avoid mirrors, such as knowing to duck when approaching a mirror and developing an excuse, such as having to fix your dress or directing the attention of others away, so they don't spot the lack of reflection in the mirror. As a last resort, the sister might even accidentally break the mirror. Also, as I mentioned before, holy objects and shrines can be harmful to the sisterhood as well. Lahmians are trained to build a resistance to these objects, but usually the sisterhood will just try their best to avoid religious sites and priests. And the Lahmian sisterhood is very powerful. They have a lot of control and influence in the empire and other human kingdoms. We don't exactly know the exact extent, and we don't know for sure if they're even choosing the emperor himself. Conclusion. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. The Illuminati is real and we're ruled by lizardmen. Seductive vampiric women. They want to suck your blood and enslave your soul. But no, seriously, the Lahmian Sisterhood is a secret society that rules from the shadows and maintains control of humanity, hoping to use them one day to defeat the Tomb Kings and reconquer Lamia in totally not Egypt. Afterward, Nefrada will once again be queen, and the cult of blood shall be re-established. Large portions of humanity in the old world will be moved south to become their new subjects and worship her forever. Now, she isn't as bad as Chaos because in her system humanity will still live, but it certainly isn't ideal. So if you ever encounter a beautiful pale woman, I'd be careful. Thanks for watching.